We cannot lose this spirit. We have been through a lot, including the Yom Kippur War. Our bloods are boiling. From the highest ranking officers to the soldiers, I cannot forget. This is the spirit. It is the spirit that brings us together. It is the spirit that makes us invincible. Our unity is the factor. We must unite it hand in hand, person to person in the state of Israel. We are together, hand in hand, shoulder by shoulder. We are doing our best to provide comfort to the families who have lost loved ones and the families of those kidnapped as well. The pain is deep, indescribable. Our hearts are heavy. It is a heavy burden. We feel it in every home, in every household. We send out our condolences and our love to all the families. As I appointed an officer to be responsible for the missing and the kidnapped, we would like to recruit other officers in order to identify the dead bodies, in order to identify them and bring them back to their families. We are doing our best at the same time to bring home all those kidnapped. We are sparing no effort to annihilate this horrible enemy. However, on behalf of all our brave fighters, like Yuval, we have many volunteers who have come from abroad to join the battlefield. It is the moment of truth. It is a battle. It is an all-out war. I sum it all in one word. Victory is inevitable. Dismantling and annihilating Hamas is inevitable. Hamas equals ISIS. This is a real crisis. Hamas is no less than ISIS. After what happened in 9/11, this is a big event. At that time, there was a global alliance to fight terrorism. No one said anything about sitting and negotiating with the leaders of ISIS. That's why today I am reiterating, we cannot sit or talk to Hamas. If there is any leadership sitting and talking to them, we must condemn them. We must sanction them. This is the message, a message of unity from this hall. From this hall where we run our own affairs. The young generations are pinning high hopes. We have no weakness. We all together without exceptions, are joined and united by one purpose: to expel and drive out brutality, to annihilate ISIS, to dismantle Hamas. The whole world has witnessed the atrocities perpetrated by Hamas fighters. The jihadists, the holy fighters, the atrocities perpetrated in our towns. Today, the whole world realized the dire need to annihilate this barbaric movement. I am in close contact with the United States President and other world heads of state like Britain, France, Italy, and many others. This morning, I met with the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who delivered a message, and a moving one. And I am certain that you have heard these words from Biden and Blinken, and you can see the ultimate support to our struggle. Tomorrow, I will be meeting with the Secretary of Defense. Our state, the State of Israel, is receiving unprecedented support. And in this battle, we are reinforced and backed by the world's support, solidarity, and firm stances. At the same time, we are equipped and backed by the military assistance, including the aircraft carriers. We explained to the world leaders, including Mr. Biden, that we must put an end to all these problems, including those you have heard a while ago. We must resolve all these problems within the towns surrounding Gaza Strip, and the residents of these towns must be provided with full arms. Members of the Knesset, my fellow citizens, our people is one of the oldest peoples in the world. And throughout history, we have been tested. We have been through pain and sufferings, many pains and sufferings. However, we never knelt down. We were never brought to our knees. Our fortitude is what makes us stand out among other peoples. Saturday, the 7th of October, will remain carved in the memory of our people and all other peoples. Dark, painful day. It is the darkest and the most dire day in our people's history, not only because of the atrocities we have witnessed, those reminiscent of the atrocities perpetrated in the past, but also of the pain inflicted on all of us. I have met no one who doesn't know another person, a relative, a family member. We all have lost loved ones, killed, kidnapped, or missing. I have met none. I would like to say that I have a relative of mine, an officer deployed on the front. He was serving in the Prime Minister's office, but he was deployed to the front. He has been always with my family. My children and his played together. Now he rests in peace. I call him as my brother. He was among those killed. Jacob, he is Dr. Isam, the son of Jacob, may he rest in peace. He also, who is also a patriotic with a father to 7 children. I remember very well how Yaakov introduced me to him with passion and love. So I repeat, I have met none who is not with pain, including myself. However, I say this deep pain I feel and everyone else will make us more strong. However, I can say that there are degrees and levels of pain. Children see their parents murdered and otherwise parents, the rape and the killing, the atrocities by all sense of the word. We have a solution at hand. It is very clear, a clear solution at hand. In happiness and sadness, in bad and good, in dark and in light, we have created this precious state and turned it into a beacon for hope. We built our state by hand, and by the other hand, we brought our enemies to their knees. Light prevailed over darkness. Survival triumphed over anything else. Fellow members, I said a while ago that the atrocities perpetrated by Hamas are reminiscent of those of the Holocaust. However, the difference is we are not kept behind the ghettos or concentration camps. We are on our homeland. Let's remain united. We have been always remembering and pondering. In the past, the left and the right did not come together. Each camp remained steadfast on its position, and the ultimate end was clear. We cannot continue as such today. We are here today on our homeland, and despite all what is being said, every time we are faced with a terrorist operation, and every time we find our people killed at the hands of Hamas or any other organization, I always say, if a single isolated incident or on a bus, all these events remind us that a big event is coming. They have malicious intentions against us, but today all these memories are back to our memories. We must remain united. We must march for victory. We have a robust state, mighty army, and above all, we have a mighty people. We have a mighty power with a firm conviction and unshaken faith. Those on the forefront will fight with all power until we bring our enemies to their knees. We will rebuild all the destroyed towns. We will continue to develop our state. I ask every one of you, our police and security personnel, and our security guards, our army personnel, everyone, including myself. I thank you very much, and I thank the volunteers who rose in outstanding numbers. I am overwhelmed. With all these powers and this spirit, we will continue to march. We will triumph. These have been dark days, difficult ones. However, we cannot fail to despair. We cannot give up. As our Holy Scripture says, at the end of the day, there will be light, and I'm certain there will be light. We will exit this plight more robust, more strong, more powerful. We are hand in hand, shoulder by shoulder. We will win our victory, our triumph, and we will prevail.
בהתאם לסעיף 40ג' לחוק יסוד הממשלה, אני מבקש להודיע לכם שוועדת השרים לענייני ביטחון לאומי החליטה על נקיטת פעולות צבאיות משמעותיות.
The bylaws, I would like to tell you in the name of the Knesset.
ו-40א1 לחוק יסוד הממשלה, החל מיום 7 באוקטובר 2023.
All will be in line with the terms of the Constitution.
שנכפתה על מדינת ישראל באמצעות מתקפת טרור רצחנית מרצועת עזה.
On the 7th of October, because of this is a war of necessity imposed upon us from Gaza Strip. And in order to safeguard the safety and security of our people, I say, according to Article 14, we join the members of the Knesset. Many of the members joined the government according to Article 15. And as a result, the government has decided to amend the situation, the position of Health Minister, Interior Minister, and the government seeks the endorsement of the Speaker of the Knesset. We thank.
Well, that was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking at Israel's Knesset, where he announced Israel's formal declaration of war against Hamas. We're going to bring in Marwan Bishara now. He is Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. He joins us from Paris. And Marwan, two main points from Netanyahu there. The first, to unite Israel behind what has happened over the last week. The second main point, which he spoke about at length, was to absolutely destroy Hamas.
Yes, these were the confident words of a wartime leader that Netanyahu has become only days after his major debacle by allowing such an operation to take place under his watch. He's certainly trying to change the narrative about his failure and that of the Israeli military establishment by rallying the spirits of the public opinion about what is coming, which is a long and painful war, as he put it. And clearly, he's trying to unite the nations behind this new so-called unity emergency government in order to launch that war that every expert in the world agrees is going to be quite bloody, long, and costly, notably to the Palestinians, with some putting the estimate at tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of casualties. To build the case for war, I think he's almost manufacturing a certain atmosphere that is parallel to that we've seen after 9/11, meaning 9/11/2001. That's why his entire references, or at least most of his references, go back to 9/11 and the war on terror, comparing Hamas to ISIS, and certainly drawing parallel with Al-Qaeda, and saying, certainly you cannot negotiate with these groups like you couldn't negotiate with ISIS. Hence, only war is our only path. And clearly delineating the kind of us versus them. Are you with us or with the enemy kind of logic from the Bush administration after 9/11, all to justify the kind of invasion that we've seen of Afghanistan and Iraq, in this case, starting against Gaza. So I think there's an entire narrative being manufactured now on the basis of this is like, or being compared to invoking the Holocaust, which is, we've always been warned that let's not just compare anything with the Holocaust. This is a total disrespect to the Holocaust. But I can hear now the Israeli Prime Minister himself undervaluing and disrespecting the Holocaust by comparing this very operation of few hours on Saturday with years of ethnic cleansing and genocide of Jews in Europe, where 6 million people were killed. Germany's Hitler is not Hamas trying to liberate its land despite its unsavory methods last weekend. The colonial situation in Palestine is not Nazism in Europe. And Palestinians trying to liberate their land and instill justice is certainly not another Holocaust. But as I said, the Prime Minister is invoking a whole set of terminologies and scenes between 9/11/2001 and the attacks on New York and Washington and the Holocaust in order to ensure the rallying not only of the Israeli people behind him, but of that of the Western public opinion and Western governments. And as you know, Tom, most of these governments have provided the Netanyahu government with unconditional support to do whatever it wants, as long as it wants, to fight and finish off Hamas.
Yeah, Marwan, you're saying that he is building a case for war here, but everyone that we have spoken to inside Israel, whether it be our correspondents or analysts from inside Israel, say that the country really is united after this attack. So is this going to work for Netanyahu, that he will unite the country and will successfully build a case for war to allow him and his new war cabinet to do whatever it likes when it comes to the inevitable, potential ground invasion or the escalation into Gaza?
Look, to be clear, there are already some major voices in Israel, although they're still in the minority, calling for his impeachment and trial, and definitely saying he's a failed leader and should not be a wartime leader. But yes, in times of crisis, the Israelis unite as they have done since the past 70 years, 75 years. There's nothing new there. They always do that regardless of who's leading the country. They tend to coalesce together under whoever is there in charge. And that's for the time being. And Netanyahu would like to prolong that as much as possible, even if that's through war, in his own personal agenda. But the two new generals in his cabinet, in the war cabinet, have not personal agendas per se, they have national security agendas in say. And they know, apparently, quite well, and that's why there is a new emergency government, is the next few weeks and months are going to be quite bloody. And as I said earlier, there seems to be an understanding that tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of people or casualties will result out of this war. And we don't know even what the result of this war might end up being, and how many Israelis, among the Israelis, will suffer or die in the midst of this war. So this is a huge responsibility to a man who's proven to be a liar, a corrupt leader, a failed leader, and so on and so forth. But here we are at this junction, and as Israel amasses 100,000 soldiers on the southern border with Gaza, as it recalls 350,000 military reserves, this country is at the brink of war. Its defense minister has already called for an invasion after the persistent, indiscriminate bombing of Gaza, a war crime, as it were. And hence, now we are just basically going to be in a countdown motion towards that war, which, frankly, Tom, I don't think anyone knows what is the end game out of this. So they say it is to dismantle Hamas, and they could probably, possible that they will be able to dismantle the military and the political and administrative structure of Hamas in Gaza, but they're certainly not going to be able to crush the idea of Hamas as a resistance movement against occupation. The occupation will still be there of Palestinian territories. Palestinian refugees in their millions will still be there. And the day after they finish cleaning up, as it were, Gaza from Hamas, what then? Will they be the occupier of Gaza again, providing food and fuel to the 2 million people in Gaza? Will they bring the Palestinian Authority to rule there, knowing the failures of the past? Will they really sacrifice thousands of Israelis in order to bring back the Palestinians to rule? I certainly cannot see that. So what then? What happens after this genocide takes place in the weeks and months to come? What is the end game if it is not an end to occupation? Because in 9/11 and in the Holocaust, we knew what the end games were. Total destroying of Al-Qaeda, occupying Afghanistan, and 20 years later, well, America is out of Afghanistan, humiliated, and the Taliban are back to rule Afghanistan. In Europe, we certainly know what happened there. There was a Second World War, and Nazism was definitely defeated, and Germany was definitely occupied because it was the aggressor that ended up killing tens of millions of Europeans, including 6 million Jews. This is nothing to be compared with a colonial setting called Israel-Palestine, where Israel is not the Jews of Europe being slaughtered by the German Nazis. It is the occupying power. And to continue to speak almost in a totally inhumane way about Israeli suffering while totally ignoring Palestinian suffering. And we are all watching those images coming from Gaza about the hundreds or the thousands of casualties, the destructions of property, the displacement of people, the hunger and starvation that is coming, the cutting of food, electricity, that every other European and American leader called it, when it happened in Ukraine, to be a war crime and terror. But when it comes to Palestine, they call it Israel defending its people. The hypocrisy is just breathtaking.
Okay, Marwan, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your insight into this. That's Marwan Bishara, our senior political analyst for Al Jazeera. Well, let's speak to Hoda Abdel-Hamid, who is outside the Knesset in West Jerusalem, where the Israeli Prime Minister was just speaking a short time ago, announcing the formal declaration for war. Hoda, as we heard Marwan saying there, Netanyahu is building a case for war. Will that be widely supported around Israel?
I think indeed it would be widely supported, because we had heard many voices saying that the government and the military really need to deal with the situation once and for all. I just want to bring you to speed, though, that what has been happening here on the ground, while the Prime Minister was talking in the Knesset, that building behind me here, well, on the other side of town in occupied East Jerusalem, there has been an attack. We have at the moment preliminary information. We know that there has been an exchange of gunfire. We are hearing that there's also a number of wounded, and the Israeli army saying that the attacker has been in what they call neutralized, which means that he has been killed too. So we will update you on that. But going back to what the Prime Minister was saying, certainly he wants to show and convey the message that now that he has this emergency unity government, he returns to be that confident the Prime Minister who has always led the country and who has always promised the Israelis security, and that's why they trusted him so much. But it might be much more difficult this time, because actually a poll that came out today, so 6 days after the attack last Saturday, says that 84% of Israelis believe that the Saturday's attack was a failure of the political leadership, and 94% of the Israelis believe that the government is responsible for the collapse of the defense system around and in the Gaza Strip. So there you have very critical voices towards Benjamin Netanyahu. Many Israelis saying that this is actually October 7th being the darkest day in the history of this young country, something that the Prime Minister here inside has reiterated, but the people outside, the wider Israeli public, are pointing the finger at him. And we were heard earlier in the day, our correspondent was at Tel Aviv airport. Hundreds and thousands of people are trying to get their way out of the country. This is also an indication that the trust in the political leadership and the trust in the defense system has crumbled somehow since over the past week, and that many people now prefer to leave the country, which is something that hasn't happened in previous wars. Granted, this is going to be a much bigger war. There's going to be probably a land invasion. Israel could come under more rocket fire, not only from Gaza, but also from Lebanon, if that is the case. But it's something that Israelis were used to, that they knew how to cope, and they trusted blindly their security apparatus. They trusted blindly that military. That has somehow crumbled, that is breached, and that is something that the people are still coming to grasp with, and it's something probably the Prime Minister is aware of, but doesn't understand the extent of the breach that has happened there between him and the rest of the public.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Hoda. We really do appreciate it. That is Hoda Abdel-Hamid, who is outside the Knesset in West Jerusalem.